in striking distance. So the plume of cloud that goes out the radar here is expansive, much bigger here on radar. So just kind of keep that in mind as we plot these storms along. And Clinton in about 20 minutes, South Lancaster in about 15 to 16 minutes, and headed eastbound and southeastbound towards Boston, and pinpoint Lynn and up on the North Shore here for us. And it gives you an arrival time on those two. You can see it very faintly. Maybe not. All right, so maybe not. But you get the idea. It's a little over an hour right now.
Just want to update something. MEMA is actually telling 7 News that they got off the phone with the National Weather Service, and the National Weather Service says they're a little skeptical of the reported tornado out there in Leverett. They're going out to check it out, but right now there aren't any reports of damage, so certainly some good news there. Every once in a while, it is possible to get these spin-ups in a squall line of perhaps a weak tornado or even a funnel cloud. They tend not to last long, as we've been talking about before. Pete, this is a different event than we had last week, quite a bit of a different setup, but just want to reiterate, it looks like the National Weather Service will check into that report of a tornado out there in Leverett, but they're skeptical of it right now. There aren't any reports of damage, and MEMA is telling 7 News that.
Right, Chris, you know, we don't want to incite panic here, and so it's important to say that this is not the same setup. We got to stress that over and over again. We don't want you to freak out. In some cases, many cases, this will be a pretty strong thunderstorm. It will be heavy rain, vivid lightning, but we're not looking at tornadoes popping up right, left, and center. So that's important to stress. Again, in this kind of situation, we can mistake sometimes the wind gusts for tornadoes, but they're essentially wind gusts, and we'll leave it at that. Lightning is a big feature here, folks. The sky's darkening now in Boston a little bit. I don't know if we have any cameras out there that we can see that from in metro traffic. Maybe not. We'll try and get that, but you can see, wow, the lightning goes all the way back. And just because the storm's passed, this is a good point to reiterate too, and we do this often in situations like this where you see the lightning post-storm. It goes on and on and on and on. And what we're seeing too, Chris, and something you noted early on, is that even the storm passed, you're going to still be in heavy rain. What we see now is you see the storms pass through, and you think you're out of the rain zone, but a lot of these storms are going to start to kind of lay down on the Mass Pike and Route 2, and when they do that, they're not able to push along as fast, so we're slowing them down a little bit as they start to move into eastern Massachusetts. That's a concern for possible flooding, and flash flooding is a definite feature of these squall line thunderstorms where you see the line start to move down and slow a little bit, and that's where you get caught in some flash flooding or some really, really intense cloud bursts or really intense rain. And you could see that right along the Quabbin, right along Interstate 91 right now, from Northampton to Springfield. You're seeing a heavy burst of rain too. These thunderstorms are feeding off of intense heat and humidity that we're seeing. Pictures in Springfield from WWLP right now, and you can see all kinds of dark skies there. This is post-squall line, folks, and they're you know, in the heat of battle out there, and they have a lot of severe weather going on around Springfield. If you take the graphic right now, well, I'm trying to get this out of Viz, and you can see that that is really chock full around Springfield of severe thunderstorm warnings. And these warnings now have been extended, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, all the way to Boston?
Yeah, just switch over the graphics. You can see that yellow box now going into the city of Boston. That is a new warning that just came up. It looks like it runs along pretty much from the city of Worcester down the Mass Pike through the city of Boston and points north. Again, the main concern with this is going to be the potential for damaging wind gusts in excess of 60 miles per hour. We have the possibility of hail. One other thing that we've been noting, though, is a tremendous amount of cloud-to-ground lightning with these storms. And when it rains, it is going to pour. The atmosphere is loaded with a lot of moisture, so that's going to reduce visibility. And obviously, Pete, the timing of this is not good coming in onto rush hour, especially with these storms rolling right down the pike into the city of Boston itself. It looks like that severe thunderstorm warning in Worcester County remains into effect for the next 15 minutes or so. The new severe thunderstorm warning in the city of Boston, including stretching all the way down the Mass Pike through Framingham and Natick, that will be in effect until 5:30. So it looks like another 45 minutes. Wow. But it doesn't look like that's going to be the end of it. We're not just under this thunderstorm action until about 5:30, because these storms do stretch pretty far back into western Mass. mass. So even though we get past the worst part of the thunderstorm in terms of some of the strongest winds, it does appear that we'll deal with some lightning and some rain on the back side of it. But we are under that severe thunderstorm warning, including the city of Boston. You can see on this radar that we are dealing with also pockets of blue that's indicating the potential for hail. Now, that's a little more hit and miss as you go through the radar. I think the biggest storm that we're looking at in terms of the potential for hail right now is in northwestern maybe Hartford County there in Connecticut, about 1.5 inch diameter. That would be severe criteria there, just under golf ball sized hail. Pete, if we can go back off to the northeast a little bit with that radar image, you can start to see some of those bursts of pink and red there, indicating the very intense parts of these thunderstorms. Now, that whole red line stretches basically from the corner of 495 up there just to the south of Nashua, up near Lawrence, all the way back into northern Worcester County. In the city of Worcester itself, we don't have any of the severe weather in yet, but it's knocking on your doorstep. You can see the red just off to the north and west of you, and right where that red pretty much begins, that's where we're seeing some of those peak wind gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour as that storm continues to move off to the east. And basically a total change in scenery there. You go from the deep blue skies that we had for a while back off into the dark skies when this line approaches you. And you can see Pete is plopping up some of these numbers, about 51, 57 miles per hour. That is the radar picking up the wind, either moving toward or away from the radar. And this is indicating wind gusts potentially of 55 to 60 miles per hour. That is why the severe thunderstorm warning is in place. You're looking at Rutland up toward Leominster. Right here, you're following I-90, I should say I-190 there, 290 off to the southeast. All of this is going to be marching right down Route 2 and down the Mass Pike, closing in on 495 very shortly, probably within the next 15 to 30 minutes. Air up toward Groton, also seeing those peak wind gusts. So this is very consistent on that line of thunderstorms, watching these winds at times pushing out of these thunderstorms at 50 to 60 miles per hour. If we can put a storm track on some of these storms moving in, we can try to time it out a little bit better as they head in toward Boston. Back through Springfield, Mass, still seeing a lot of heavy rain, a lot of lightning as well. These storms, again, notice that pushing that bow signature toward it. That means the winds are pushing out, not necessarily rotating like the storms that we saw last week, and that's why we're not as concerned about widespread tornadoes as we are just your normal 60-mile-per-hour wind damage that we sometimes get in the summertime. Here are some of the numbers here, the close in back toward western Mass, but the warning in Boston does go, Pete, until 5:30. So I think in Boston, we're probably about half an hour to 40 minutes away before we begin to see some of these stronger wind gusts move in. I'll toss it back over to you.
Yeah, that's something else, too, and we're watching, too, in the northern fringe of the line, too, Chris. Boy, this line is moving along. I'm kind of struck by the amount of rain and the fact that even though I was noting while you were looking at the radar out at Springfield right now, let's go back to that for a second. Out in Springfield, reds, pinks, magentas, and then you go to turn the hail on and you see almost no hail. So what's that saying? That means that's heavy. I mean, we're talking like right in Springfield. Yeah, north Connecticut. And right near Torrington, you have the hail core, and you have the possibility. As Springfield is concerned, very little hail, but a heck of a lot of heavy rain right now. And also another hail threat would be right on 93, right through Derry and Salem, and then over to Nashua, a little bit Hudson, Pelham, and then up into southern Maine. You could see another hail core possibly, and possibly that has some intense hail in it. But it's getting a little bit far away from our radar site. I don't know if that's Portland or not that's picking that up. Anyway, down through parts of Worcester, though, Worcester suburbs, again, a rain issue. And I think, you know, the biggest feature and the biggest thing we can show you that has a big wow factor and something of a concern right now is this leading edge where you go from nothingness to this shading of green. It looks like precipitation, but it's not. This is the wind coming out of these thunderstorms. And you can see that leading edge, as you mentioned, Chris, that's the wind gusts at least 50 miles an hour to 60 miles per hour. Let me put the ID tool on that, and you can see in some cases down to, and let's not confuse it. I mean, you know, when you see a negative sign, don't worry about it. It's just get the number out of it. It's 54 miles an hour. Toward and away from the radar tells us negative and positive. So That's what we're seeing right now on that leading edge. And that shading of red, that's a different radar site out of Albany, New York. All right. What's good on this? So let's time out some of these storms again. And you can see that line coming out of southern New Hampshire. Now, the northern edge of it seems to have a little bit of a bow right near Nashua. You can see that arc that comes down on 93. That might be another area of an intense wind. Are you running the radar, Chris, or am I?
I had you running it. I can work through it if you want to track out some of the storms.
No, I wanted to see if that had a strong wind gust in that.
Okay. Pete, in the meantime, I am hearing that we have a picture out of Fitchburg.
Okay.
If we have that, we can bring that up just to give an example of some of the clouds rolling in. Wow, that's quite the shot there. It looks like a little bit of daylight.
Is that a viewer pic? That's a viewer pic?